We often say, sometimes quite desperately, that parenting doesn't come with a manual. It is true that there are resources that you can access as a parent, and this website is a very important one, as may be the advice of grandparents, extended family, the wisdom of a nanny. But there's another very important resource that you have access to, and that is your own capacity for self-reflection. You want to be a good enough parent, not a Pinterest or an Instagram parent, just a good enough parent. You want to be an ordinarily good enough parent, not an extraordinarily good enough parent. And if you can reflect on some of your own experiences of having been parented, that can be an important starting point. A reflective capacity can help us to make sense of what's happening for ourselves, and it can also help us to make sense of what's happening for others. For some of us, it is easier than for others. If you've had a particularly difficult childhood, or if you've had traumatic experiences, it's harder to reflect on what may have been going on for you or what might be going on inside. But I do think it's important that you try to develop a reflective capacity, because it's very useful when it comes to parenting. A good capacity for reflective functioning has been shown in research to enhance the parent-infant relationship and hence to positively affect the emotional, psychological development of a child. And there are a number of reasons and a number of ways in which this happens. Firstly, being in touch with your own experiences and your own emotions allows you to think about what you may need to help you cope. If you know that you're stressed, if you know that you're depressed, if you know that you're exhausted, you can think about what may help you to relieve yourself of those kinds of demands. And if you can feel yourself to be in a better place, if you can get help with the things that you're struggling with, it's going to make you more available to your baby, who has no one else to help him or her manage the difficult feelings that are part of normal infancy and development. Secondly, we've all been parented. For better or for worse, we've all been brought up by parents or parent figures, and if we can reflect on our experiences, we have a guide, both in terms of what we think was good and worth repeating with our own children, and what we think was unhelpful or hurtful that we would wish to avoid. It's true that you don't really know what's going on in your 2-year-old's mind, but there is a 2-year-old inside you somewhere. And 2-year-olds struggle with things like frustration, with trying to get things right, with managing on their own. And we can usually find ways of relating to that if we think about our own experiences when we try to do something and it doesn't turn out as well as we thought it would. Fourthly, self-reflection is often helpful in terms of our capacity for empathy. Our own feelings are often a clue to the feelings of others around us. So, for example, most people will relate to being on an aeroplane with a crying baby, not necessarily your own, and the kinds of very powerful, intense feelings that may stir up in you. Irritation, anxiety, frustration, helplessness. That can be a clue to what the crying baby might be feeling. And the same goes for your own child, your own distressed child. If you tune into what you're feeling while you're trying to manage a colicky baby, you may discover feelings of pain, feelings of exhaustion, feelings of being overwhelmed. And once you recognize that, it may help you, even if you can't take the feelings away from your baby, to think about what your baby may need from you, which is most likely just to be your presence, the reassurance of your presence, so that the child or the baby doesn't have to manage those terribly difficult feelings all alone. And finally, it's very helpful for us if we are able to differentiate between feelings we may have in a situation that belong to us and our own past experiences, our own particular temperaments, and those that belong to our children. So there's a very cute and quite insightful little cartoon. It shows a little boy off clearly to the first day of school with a backpack on, walking through the gates, holding his mother's hand. And coming out of her mouth is a speech bubble that says, "This is going to be such fun, you've got a great teacher and you're going to meet lots of new children and you're going to learn lots of interesting things and you're going to have fun in the sand pit." And he's got a thought bubble coming out of his head that says, "Then why is she holding my hand so tight?" A capacity for self-reflection alerts us to feelings that may belong to our own past experiences. Perhaps that mum didn't have an easy time going to school when she started, but it's not really going to be helpful if she unconsciously communicates her own anxiety to her child while she's trying to prepare him for his big day. If self-reflection feels like a difficult thing to do, either because it's hard to access what's really going on inside you, or there's something quite painful going on inside you that you don't want to acknowledge and think about, that might be an indication to seek out some professional help. That's what counsellors are there to do, in very ordinary ways, to help us to think about ourselves and to think about our internal worlds, our memories, our experiences, our feelings.